Hello and welcome to the Pickle Jar. My name is Josh and in today's video I'm going to be painting up one of the new... what's it called? I'm going to be painting up the new Necron, Skorpekh Lord. Pickle Jar! Pickle Jar! Miniatures! Excellent! Hi guys and welcome back to the Pickle Jar. Just want to say before we get going that if you are enjoying the content we're putting out here on the Pickle Jar, be sure to leave a like and a comment down below, let me know your thoughts. And if you're new, please consider subscribing so you can keep up to date with all the content we release in the future. So in today's video, I'm going to be painting up the new Necron, Destroyer Lord, the big guy on the big three legs that came in the Indomitus box set. I've been looking forward to painting this guy for a while. I started off by painting up the Necron warriors and scarabs and things like that from the Indomitus box set, just to sort of give me a flavour and give me a bit of chance to try out the new colour scheme, try out the new paints. And then once I was confident with the colour scheme and sort of knew what I was doing, it was time to tackle this big guy. If you've seen the videos that I've been doing recently, you'll have seen that I am doing a sort of worn bronze sort of look on the armour and then nice bright green weaponry for the guns. So I've taken this same colour scheme and I've applied it to the Skorpekh Lord, and this is how I got on. So here is the new Skorpekh Lord from the Indomitus box set. This is one of the models that I was most looking forward to painting when I first got the box set, and I've sort of waited a little bit. I've waited until I've painted some of the warriors and the scarabs and some of the smaller things just so that I can get my paint scheme down so that I know what I'm doing with it, so that I feel a lot more confident in painting this guy because he's one of the the HQ units. He's a big model, so he needs to look good on the table. So I wanted to wait a while, and I'm really happy that I'm finally getting to paint him. So all I'm doing is putting down the first layer of Synaptic Alloy. As per all the other Necrons that I've been doing, I'm using Synaptic Alloy as a base coat, and then I'm going to be going over the top of that with Rune Lord Brass, and then using the gloss armor shade that they also released to darken parts down and add weathering and grime and things like that to give him a sort of worn, destroyed look. Now, something different that I was doing on this guy is I left the bottom parts of the legs, as you can see there, in the black, and I'm planning on doing those in a dark green, similar to old Necron imagery that you used to get. You get like the dark green parts on things like weaponry or on that monolith and things like that. So I wanted to leave those separate. I thought it'd look quite good, and this is a classic case of where you plan something out in your head and it doesn't necessarily go how you think it's going to go. It doesn't end up looking how you think it's going to look, and I've left it in the video purely because I think that sometimes people watching YouTube videos will get the impression that we sort of plan things out A to B and that's it, and there's no errors, there's no back and forth, there's no change of plan. But we're just like everybody else, we're just like all other painters where we might have an idea in his head and it doesn't always work out how we want it to. So I've left it in because I wanted people to see that sometimes we do that. Sometimes we do have to change his mind and change our plans to make it look better because it's not working out how we want. So you'll also see here that I decided to go back over the thick shoulder pads. I say shoulder pads, the thick shoulder plating that he has in a contrast black, just to darken those back down. I decided I didn't want to do them in metallic. I wanted to have them in the same sort of dark green that I'm doing on the bottom half of the legs. So that's all I'm doing here. This is just black contrast paint going over the top of the metallic. I put a couple of coats on. I'm literally using contrast paint because it flows off your brush easier than just normal black paint. No other reason other than that, just purely because, and to be fair, I'd got it on hand from something else I'd been working on. So that's all I'm doing here, darkening those back down because once again, changed my mind after painting and wanting to do something slightly different to my original plan. So now that all the metallic base coat is on and dry, it's time to do one of my favourite parts on this colour scheme, which is to add on the armour shade gloss. Now adding this on completely transforms the tone and the look of the paint that's on underneath it. It really darkens it down, and it's absolutely fantastic for adding weathering. So you can pull this up in certain areas to give loads of dark grimy sections, or you can just water it down and put it on smoothly over the top just to darken down the bronze that is on underneath it. Now I've done this on all my other guys and sort of perfected how and where to place things, so aiming mainly for the centre of each panel, and then adding in more of the darker version of it just in any gashes and gouges in the armour. From obviously there's loads built into these models. These aren't things that I've had to put in extra. They're not additional weathering and damage. They're all sculpted into the models, which I think is fantastic. I think it really adds to the sort of ancient look. As they are Necrons, they are like 6 million years old or however old they are, so they should be a bit knackered. So that's all I'm doing here, is just going over it, adding it on. It is a little bit of a slow process, but it's not as slow as it could be, and I think that the end result is worth just that little bit of patience, just adding it on panel by panel, bit by bit, moving it around off your brush once it's on the panel, putting it where it needs to be, taking it off from where it doesn't need to be. And as you can see, it really adds to the end result of the colour on the armour. Now this is the section where I started to work on the green legs that I'd intended on leaving in, and as I said, I've left this in because I think it's important for people to see that even people that make YouTube videos, that put painting tutorials and things out there, we don't always get it right first time, and not every idea works. So it's important to try something. If it doesn't work though, don't be afraid to admit that it's not worked and it doesn't look how you envisioned it, and that you want to try something different instead. So all I did here, I was just dry brushing on, going from a very, very dark green. I think I started with Ink by Darkness, and then worked it up. I did highlights, I highlighted the edges and the different sort of battle damage and just everything on there. Highlighted up, did everything that I thought I wanted to do on it, how I thought I wanted it to look, and then this is the end result. This is what I was left with. I sort of left it that night, I stepped away from it, I just took a while, and then I came back the next morning to have another look at it and decided that yeah, it's not what I'd originally envisioned, it's not what I wanted, and it was time to start over. So I just went back over the top of it and did the dry brushing with the metallics and added the cryptic armor shade just to get it up to the same colour and standard as the rest of the model. It's finally time for one of the most exciting parts of this paint scheme. That is using the new Tesseract Glow paint. So all I'm doing here is getting that prepared by using a couple of thin coats of Ulthuan Grey on all the areas that I'm wanting to use the new bright green paint on. Now the Tesseract Glow paint, you just use it like you would do contrast paint. Put it on, take it off where you've put too much on. Put more on than you think you need to start with though. That is what I have found to be the easiest way to use this. And then if you just get a little bit on your brush, once you've put it down on a certain area, like you can see me here putting it on the cable in the Skorpekh Lord's like sort of stomach area, it's going on the cable, and then all I'm doing is taking a small amount and sort of just glazing that over the areas around it, and that will give the impression of a glow effect. It adds to what this paint already does all by itself just a little bit, and that's something that I've found. Just like I said, just glazing it on over the top of the surrounding areas, just so that it looks like the light is emanating from the green energy cables and orbs and things, and going on around that as well and casting its light out. This is an absolutely fantastic paint. I did a tutorial a few weeks ago now on how to paint bright gauze rods for your Necron warriors and Immortals and things like that, and that was before this paint came out. Obviously that method is still very, very valid, and in fact when I'm painting my warriors weapons I use that same method, except I put this on in the very center area now over the top of the sort of yellow moot green that I did before, because it just adds that extra bit of vibrancy and it really does look fantastic. I decided to add a very, very light metallic dry brush for the weaponry. So that's mainly for the claw. I started off doing this because I didn't want to draw too much attention away from all the bright glowing areas and the armour itself. So I felt like the claw can just be a nice light metallic dry brush. All I'm using is lead belch. Like I said, very, very light going on over top of that, so it's mainly still black, just with that metallic shine on there. And then I decided to do the same thing for the casing on the gun and for the hilt on the big sword that he's got. Now, this is mainly just because, once again, the main focus that I want people to be looking at are all the different glowing areas and the armour. So I decided that it didn't really need too much effort and detail putting in to the smaller areas like that, like the casing and the hilt on the sword. Now, when it came to the sword itself, this is the part of the model that I actually spent probably the most amount of time going back and forth and trying things and painting and redoing. Now, the box art is really, really nice for this. Like, it has the very sort of back and forth, really bright, really dark green. And I wanted to go for something a little bit like that, but not quite the same as the box art. I want to put my own spin on it, so I decided to start off the same as the green on the shoulder pads and on the legs that I'd done earlier on before I changed them. So I started off with Incubi Darkness and sort of tried to blend that up and shade that up through Warpstone Glow, and then up to Moot Green, and then I was planning on highlighting some areas and brightening them up and then leaving other areas as darker on there. I must have been going back and forth, doing this and redoing it and highlighting and then going back and starting over so many times. And if I'm honest, I'm still not 100% happy with the end result that I got for the end of the video. It's something that I am more than likely going to go back and work on and sort of redo it once I've got more of a clear idea of what I want to do and how I want to achieve that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with going back to a model once you've sort of had a bit more practice and you've had a few more ideas and you've got more of an idea of what you want to achieve with that. I'll more than likely use the 3 destroyers that I've got to paint as practice because they also have this same style sword. So I'll practice on those, and then once I've sort of got down what I want to do, I'll go back to this guy and repaint it so that it matches up and so that it's more of what I'd originally envisioned rather than what I'm left with for the end of the video. Anyway, I carried on at this. You can see me, I've been going back and forth on the sword, adding bits and taking bits away. Once it was up to a stage where I was happy enough with it, I chucked all the basing material on, got him all edge highlighted on the base, got all that nice and tidy, and this is the end result. So I'm very, very happy with how the majority of this guy turned out. Like I said, we had a couple of hiccups and a couple of issues and areas where it didn't quite work out as I originally envisioned, but overall I'm very, very happy with this guy. I'm looking forward to going back and fixing up the couple of areas that I'm not particularly happy with, like the sword, and I'm looking forward to seeing this guy out on the battlefield with the rest of the army once they're all finished. So there you go, guys, that is how I painted my Skorpekh Lord from the Indomitus box set. I hope you enjoyed watching me go through the process of painting this guy and working a couple of different bits out, changing up the paint scheme that I'd initially decided on, and things like that. It's always good. I decided to leave that bit in because sometimes when you watch people paint stuff on YouTube, you think that it's just straight A to B and that's it, and they know exactly what they're doing. And often, quite a lot of the time, we'll start off by painting something and then it doesn't work out right, like it didn't in this video. And we have to change up his ideas and end up with a different result than we'd initially intended, but one that I think on the whole looks better for it. So there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. And if you're new, once again, please consider subscribing so you can keep up to date with all the content we release in the future. If you want to catch one of our live streams, we live stream every Wednesday evening at 8 PM. And if you want to get involved on helping decide what we are going to be painting on that live stream, you can vote on the poll that we put out on our Facebook page, usually on a Monday, but it's sometimes Tuesdays, so head on over to our Facebook page to check that out. Speaking of live streams, if you want to catch more of me, you can see me on the Chilling Wargamers YouTube channel every Thursday evening for the live show at 8 PM. I host the show along with Spud and Elston, and we have guests on, we do painting challenges, and we just talk about different topics that are sort of prominent in the wargaming community. It's always a good laugh, so head on over using the link below and join us for one of our live shows. If you want to help support the Pickle Jar, then we have a link down below where you can donate money towards the channel. And if you want to look stylish while you're helping support the channel, then we have our very own merch store where we sell t-shirts, mugs, cushions, face masks, whatever you need, it's all on there, and everything that we make for it goes back into the channel to help us create new content. That's all from me, and I'll see you next week with another video.